Okay, I am back again. Second night shooting. I'm a little bit happier this time because I've had a chance to look at all the photos and go through them. This time I did not go way outside of town like I did last time. I went out to our municipal soccer field, which is on the southwest side of town, and set up my camera there. Again, it was dark. Now, the weird thing about this one, and I didn't really expect this, when I shot before, it was new moon. So there were no problems with extra light, except for the light pollution of the cities from last time. This time, it was a super sliver of a crescent moon. Really a sliver of a crescent moon. But because of the way I was exposing everything, that moon blew up. So the first shot that you're going to see is the 24 millimeter instead of the 20 millimeter Sigma. I switched out to a 24 millimeter Rokinon. This one is also an it's a T-stop, so it's a cinema lens. And if we take a look at this one, you can really see how bright that moon is. But at the same time, we can still see Venus and the Pleiades. This is just a few days before conjunction. We can also see Orion in there and the sliver of the crescent moon. But the moon just really explodes. These images were being shot at the 24 millimeter. I think I was shooting these at about 12-second exposures or about 10-second exposures each. So we really get some good focus on this. The other thing that I did, where's it at? The other thing that I did is I 3D printed a Badenoff mask that, actually a couple of them, that go right on the front of my camera lenses. So I had one for the Rokinon 24, which I believe was a 77 millimeter or 77 millimeter diameter. So I printed one off, and the Badenoff mask helps with focusing. So focusing, I think this time was much better. So that's pretty cool. And you can find this on Thingiverse. So I've shared a link down below on this, but there's a whole bunch of them, and these fit. I don't remember if these were Canon lenses or just digital SLRs, but whatever the diameter of your lenses, they had one of those in there. So I printed off an 80 and a 77 and maybe it's a 50 millimeter one. And that really helped with the focusing. So I like that a lot. So the nice thing about this shot is, as I said, we can see Venus and the Pleiades and the moon, which is super bright. And we can also see Orion in there as well. I was a little concerned and a little upset in the first couple of batches of images that I took with this. And I took, I think, 60 images each at the 24, and then a couple of others we'll talk about in a minute. Just so I was thinking of doing some stacking, but really when I looked at this, I saw no reason to try to stack these 24 millimeter images because the moon is just so bright. And I wanted to see if I could get some other photos that were a little bit better. So I switched out the 24 mil and I went to an 85 millimeter lens, and I turned that over to Orion so that the moon was out of the shot and hopefully not getting as much light in there. And I took these photos, and this one is not all of Orion's the constellation, but we have the belt and we have his sword where we have the Orion Nebula and everything in there. And I thought these turned out really pretty good. Now, this is not a stacked image here, but it does look pretty cool. I think at this point, I think I was down to 6-second exposures. And again, I think I took about 60 of these. I also did something called, dark frames, where essentially what a dark frame is you put the lens cap on the lens and then you fire off 15 to 20 shots of your sensor, of your camera, where the sensor is in the same temperature environment and at the same ISO and the same f-stop and all of those kinds of things as the ones you exposed for the star. So I've got some dark frames as well. And boy, I was really surprised at how many dead pixel and noisy pixels I have on this camera, which I've had for 10 years. So it's getting kind of old. And then, because I had nothing else to do, well, I had many things to do, but because I had nothing else to do, I said, okay, I saw a technique where I could shoot with 135 millimeter, or not 135 millimeter, a 300 millimeter lens. So I took my 100 to 300 millimeter lens that I had shown previously in one of the previous videos. And I saw this technique where I could frame up the Orion Nebula, zoom in all the way, get it at 300. So this is at 6.8 f-stop, I believe. And I calculated that I needed to get about a 2-second exposure or less. Maybe it was 1-second exposures, but I think I went with 2. And I just framed up on the 3 stars in Orion's belt where the Orion Nebula was. And you could actually kind of see the little fuzz of the nebula through the 300 millimeter telephoto lens on my camera. Now, the Canon Mark III, 5D Mark III is not a crop sensor camera, so it's a full frame, because that does matter to some people. If I had had the crop sensor, I probably would have been at like a 450 or something like that. But I went all the way to 300, and I could see just a little fuzziness of the Orion Nebula. And I went off and I fired I fired off 80 2-second exposures of just that little section where I thought the Orion Nebula was, with the intent of doing some stacking when I came back. And again, listen, this is my second night outside doing this stuff. I wasn't expecting anything great, but what I would do is I would fire off like 10 or 15 images, and then I would reframe the camera, reframe the shot, because, the constellation's moving through the frame, and then I'd fire off 15 more and then reframe, 15 more, reframe. And the thing that was kind of time consuming about that was that every time I had to reframe, I had to crank my ISO way up so I could see the stars in live view, and then turn that back down. And I think I had these at either 1600 or 800 ISO for that 1 or 2 second exposure. And I just kept doing that for like an hour. It was kind of chilly. This was March 29th, I think. It was March 29th or 30th. It was a Sunday evening. And again, I had nothing better to do. So I just went out and shot a bunch of those with the intention that when I brought them back, I would stack them up and see how they looked, and with no expectation that I would get anything at all, because number one, the exposure time was so short. And number two, the fact that, I was just out there getting images, just screwing around, just to see if this would work. I saw somebody else try it and suggest it. I could think it's called move and shoot, where you move the camera, shoot, then move the camera, shoot. So I didn't expect anything to come of it. And I just wanted to see what would happen when I stacked these together. And I ran this through Deep Sky Stacker. And listen, I know a lot of you who've been doing this for years are going to say, this looks like crap. But take a look at this. This looks, to me, wonderful. This is the first time ever that I have shot the Orion Nebula and have been able to see something that looks like this. Now, this is heavily cropped in. I did do a lot of post processing on this image. In fact, here, let's do this. Here is an original image. Okay. This is what the image looked like when it came directly out of the camera. Here's the image as a TIFF file after it's been stacked, but before it's been processed. And here's the Photoshop processing and the cropping and everything. And I don't care. I don't care if you guys think this is the worst. I don't care if you give this video a bunch of thumbs down. I don't care. This is what made me super, super excited. Ever since I was a kid, looking at those pictures of the Orion Nebula and the Horsehead Nebula. In fact, on one of these images, I think on this image here, if you look really, really close, you can see a little bit of the Running Man and the Horsehead Nebula in here. But man, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to get these pictures of the Orion Nebula and the Horsehead Nebula, and 2-second exposures at ISO 800 in this move and shoot where I'm not tracking this at all. I didn't use a camera tracker on this, which means that if I can do this, you can do it too. And I didn't spend hardly any time on the post-processing of this. I probably should have. I don't think it really matters because the data is probably not that great. But just to get the color out of here, to see those reds and see a little hint of those blues popping up in this Orion Nebula is amazing. And this got me really excited. I know in the last video I was pretty down. I was pretty mad at myself about the first batch of photos that came out, especially when Orion is about to go away in the next couple of weeks or a month or so due to, moving from the winter into the summer and spring and summer. But man, I am super pleased about this. This has me jazzed. This has me wanting to go back out and shoot as many nights as I can. And now I am, look, I don't even have a telescope yet. I am dead set on getting this sky tracker and getting out there and doing a really long exposure with my 100 to 300 millimeter Canon lens. I want to shoot this at 300 millimeters. I want to track this. I want to do this for like a 3-minute exposure and do like 20 or 30 of those and stack those and then see what happens. This is why I started this. Because I found this was going to be super fun, that I was going to be super excited. This is a totally different mood than where I was last time. And oh my gosh, I have no words for how I feel about this right now. I know. These images are going to get better. I'm out here to learn and to grow. And I'm sure that those of you who are saying, it's a horrible image. I'm sure your very first images of whatever nebula you were shooting didn't turn out this great. Maybe they did. If they did, share them. Let me know. Share a link down below. I want to take a look at your very first astrophotography image of a deep sky object or a narrow field or deep field. I don't know what they call it. But I want to see those photos if you've taken them. And I don't care. I love this image, even though it's a horrible image. It's like your first child. You got to love your first child. Got to love all your children. But I know this is a bad picture, but it has me excited. It has me wanting to go and do more of this. And because of this, I think this is a success. What do you think? Use the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I can't wait till we go out again and get even more photos of the night sky.